Chapter 14, Treason House, Joslyn. I wouldn't try running again, Benedict said, or you'll both end up dead. Benedict rode beside me with the reins of my horse in his hands. Major Andre did the same with Josh. All the while they kept their pistols on us. We're all going for a nice evening ride, and you're going to behave yourselves, said Benedict. His tone was menacing, and our eyes met for an instant. Benedict wasn't behind those gray eyes. It was the time breaker, and something told me he was much worse than Benedict. Where are you taking us? Josh asked. He sounded defiant instead of scared. His John Anderson grown-up attitude had obviously taken over. Where you won't cause any trouble until this is all over. We're going to my friend Joshua Smith's home. We'll lock you up in his cellar until we take over West Point. That name, Joshua Smith, sounded familiar. Suddenly, I remembered. Treason House, I mumbled. In the original timeline, Joshua Smith's home was where Benedict Arnold and Major Andre made a deal to betray the American Revolution. Americans called it Treason House for years after the Revolutionary War. In this timeline, the timebreaker had struck a deal earlier, but would still go to Joshua Smith's home anyway because of us. We didn't do it intentionally, but I wondered if that meant the timeline was preserved. I could only hope. And yet, being locked up in the cellar of Treason House didn't feel like things were going in a positive direction. We rode for a few hours, but it seemed like forever. It was way past my bedtime or even my mom and dad's bedtime when we arrived. Treason House stood on a hill overlooking the Hudson River, but we couldn't see much of the view even though the moon was bright. However, even in the dark, I could tell Treason House was more of a mansion than a house. It was an intimidating monster of a home that boasted a large balcony on the second floor, spanning the width of the house, in front of 3 humongous windows across the top. On one side of the home, an additional connected building made the already sizable structure even larger. On the first floor, the porch was elevated and surrounded by a fence, except where the stairs led up to the front of the porch, which waited for me like the mouth of some giant beast. The front door was tall and narrow, and guarded on either side by 2 large dark windows that stared at me like the eyes of a monster. We dismounted, and Benedict and Major Andre pushed and prodded us up the stairs and onto the front porch. Benedict banged on the door, and we waited. The 4 of us stood in silence. After a minute, he banged on the door again. The noise was loud enough to wake the entire neighborhood, except there wasn't a neighborhood, only big scary Treason House, Josh and me, and 2 bad guys. "Who is it? What do you want?" a man growled as he opened the door. He obviously wasn't happy we'd woken him up in the dead of night. "John, it's me, General Arnold." "Let me in, you idiot." Benedict didn't wait for an answer. He barged into the house, yanking me along behind him. Major Andre followed, pushing Josh before him. I remembered from my history book that the man was Joshua Smith. "What's going on?" Hetton mumbled. He rubbed his eyes, still waking up. He was dressed in a long white shirt that went to his ankles. Apparently, that shirt was his pajamas. "We have a problem, and I need to hold up here until morning. I also need to lock up these 2 spies. We caught them tonight and need to keep them here for a few days." "That's a lie," I spat. "You're the spy and a traitor to your country." "My country is England, and I am loyal to His Majesty," replied Benedict with a sneer that made me want to dump a milkshake on his head. "Throw them in the cellar, John. I have some business I need to discuss with my friend." "Yes, sir," Joshua Smith replied. Apparently Joshua was a traitor too, because he did not blink an eye at any of this. Benedict handed Hetton his pistol, and Hetton promptly pointed it at Josh and me. Hetton was probably about 30 years old or so, and had a narrow face with beady brown eyes. He was tall and skinny, but moved with a wiry dexterity. There wasn't much I could do to resist. Using the revolver, Joshua Smith motioned us to move down a hallway to our left. We did as we were told and walked down the hallway. After a short distance, we came to a door. Josh struggled with his hands to try to get free, but it was no use. "You won't get away with this," he said. "Stop your fussing and settle down," said Hetton. He gave Josh a nasty look. "Open it," he said in a rough tone. He was no longer sleepy Joshua Smith, or even grumpy Joshua Smith. He was angry, Joshua Smith. Josh opened the door with his hands still tied. Hetton handed me a candle he took from a nearby table. Then, with a curt, low voice, Hetton said, "Go," and pointed with the gun at the doorway. Peering through the doorway, all I could see was a stairway going down into a pitch-black blob of darkness. I hesitated. "Go," he said again in a more threatening tone as he jabbed the pistol in my back. Step by agonizing step, I went down the stairs into the dark cellar. The darkness was no comfort like in the woods. It felt more like I was crawling into the belly of a dragon. Josh followed. I hoped his John Anderson bodyguard grown-up courage was bubbling up. At the bottom, the soft glow of the candle offered me only a hint of comfort in the cold, dark cellar. Behind us, Joshua Smith laughed the way a mean kid would make made fun of a weaker one. I was scared, and I was pretty sure grown-up Emily was scared too. "Make yourselves comfortable," he said. But what he really meant was the place wasn't even a bit comfortable, and he didn't want us to be comfortable. The cellar was filled with barrels of carrots, potatoes, onions, and other foodstuff. At least we had plenty to eat, but I wasn't hungry, just tired. I wanted to lie down right on the dirt floor, but a dead rat lay belly up nearby. "Wonderful," I said. "Such a lovely place. I especially love the rat. Nice touch." I turned back around to face Joshua, but he was already gone. The door at the top of the stairway closed with a loud thud. Then a minute later, I heard a key lock the door, which killed any hope of making an escape. At the far end of the cellar, I saw 2 large doors leading outside, but they were secured by a big old lock and chain. "Man, that is a big rat," said Josh. "I sure hope they're all dead." I looked at the dead rat again. Josh was right. It was huge. Exhausted and with my hands tied together, I climbed on top of a few closed barrels nestled together and lay down across them. I sighed and looked over at my brother. "Let me get this right, Josh. We're tied up and locked in a dark, cold cellar with a dead rat as company." Josh climbed on top of the nearest barrel and sat down. "That pretty much sums it up," he said flatly. I could tell even he wasn't having fun anymore.